My brother betrayed me with my girlfriend 26 years ago. Now he tried to use my daughter's wedding to clean his image, but she exposed him publicly and destroyed him in front of the entire family. I'm 46 years old. I work in construction, and the truth is, I thought I had left all this shit in the past like 26 years ago. But turns out the past has a way of coming back to hit you in the face right when you least expect it. My daughter Victoria is about to get married. It should be the happiest moment of my life, you know, seeing your little girl all grown up walking down the aisle. But instead of being excited, I'm here writing this because I need to get everything off my chest before I explode. I guess I should start from the beginning, when all this started over 2 decades ago, because without that context, none of what happened these last few weeks makes sense. I was 20 years old, almost 21, and I was dating this girl, Danielle. We'd been together for like 2 years, and I thought she was the one. Like that person you're going to grow old with and all that story. It was one of those intense young relationships where you think nothing can go wrong because you're so in love. My CP, brother Scott, 2 years younger than me, also lived in the same town, worked at my dad's mechanic shop, and I was starting out in construction. We were close. I mean, we fought like all brothers, but at the end of the day we were family, you know what I mean? We'd have barbecues on Sundays, watch football together, all that brother stuff when you get along. Never. And when I say never, I mean never. Would it have crossed my mind that this guy was capable of doing what he did? I found out in the worst possible way. Basically, I caught them in my own house. I had gone out to buy some things for dinner, came back earlier than expected because I forgot my wallet, and there they were in my living room. And I don't need to go into details, but it was obvious enough what was happening. Danielle started crying and saying she was sorry, that it had been a mistake, that it didn't mean anything. All the cliché phrases people say when they get caught doing something unforgivable. Scott couldn't even look me in the eyes. He just put on his shirt and tried to say something like, "Bro, let me explain." But I cut him off right there. I told him, "Get out of my house right now and don't ever talk to me again in your fucking life." And I kept that promise. Literally, for 26 years I didn't exchange a single word with him. The family obviously took the side of, well, you have to forgive. Your brothers. Blood is more important. All that stuff people say when they weren't the ones who got betrayed. My mom, Diane, would cry and tell me I was being too hard, that Scott was young and had made a mistake. My dad, Raymond, told me that someday I'd have to let it go. But the thing is, for me, it wasn't just that Scott slept with my girlfriend, it was the complete betrayal. Like this was my brother, the person who was supposed to have my back, and he stabbed me deeper than anyone. So I cut contact, stopped going to family gatherings if he was going to be there, basically erased him from my life as if he had never existed. Scott and Danielle ended up getting married like a year after all the drama, which for me was confirmation that it hadn't been just a one-night mistake or whatever. It had been a real thing, a conscious and calculated betrayal. They had a son. Michael, I think his name is. I moved on with my life. Met Cynthia like 3 years after all that. We got married, had Victoria, who's now 23, and we got divorced like 6 years ago, but on good terms. I mean, it wasn't an ugly divorce or anything, we just realized we were better as friends than as a couple. Now, I've been with Brittany for 2.5 years, and things are going well. She knows this whole story with Scott and completely supports me. Victoria grew up knowing she had an uncle she never saw. Obviously, when she was little, she'd ask why Uncle Scott didn't come to her birthday or Christmas. And I'd explain in simple terms that he and I had had a big problem and that for now we weren't talking. When she grew up and understood things better, I told her the truth. Not all the graphic details, obviously, but enough for her to understand why I had made that decision. She always respected it, never pressured me to change my mind. And I thought that's how things were going to stay forever. Like I'd die without having ever talked to Scott again, and that would be fine with me. But then like 2 months ago, Victoria invites me for coffee at this place she likes near her apartment. I thought it was going to be to tell me more details about the wedding, because she's getting married in 3 months, to this incredible guy named Jake, who I really like. He works in it and treats my daughter like a queen. But when I arrived, I saw that Victoria had that face of, "Dad, I need to tell you something you're not gonna like," and I automatically knew something heavy was coming. We sat down, ordered coffee, and after like 5 minutes of awkward small talk, she drops, Dad, I've been thinking a lot about the wedding, and I want the whole family to be there, including Uncle Scott and his family. I swear I felt like someone had thrown a bucket of cold water on me. I told her, Victoria, you know I can't be in the same place as that man. You know what he did? And she interrupted me, saying, Dad, I know, but it's been 26 years. Don't you think that's enough time? I want my kids to someday have a complete family, not this broken family where half doesn't talk to the other half. And I answered her, Sweetheart, I understand what you're saying, but this is a line I can't cross. That guy destroyed my life over 2 decades ago, and the fact that time has passed doesn't change what he did. The conversation got more tense. Victoria started crying a little, saying that her wedding was going to be incomplete no matter what decision she made. That if she invited Scott, I wasn't going to go, but if she didn't invite him, then my dad's whole family was going to be upset because they do maintain contact with him. I told her, look, this is your wedding, and I respect that you want whoever you want there. But if Scott is going to be present, then I'm not going. Simple as that. And she told me, Dad, you can't do this to me. You can't make me choose between my dad and my uncle at my own wedding. I tried to stay calm and explain to her that I wasn't making her do anything, that she was free to invite whoever she wanted, but that I was also free to decide whether I was going to attend or not. And my limit has always been not being around Scott. We left that coffee shop basically without resolving anything. Her crying and me feeling like the worst father in the world, but at the same time thinking I couldn't give in on this. That there were things that simply aren't forgiven or forgotten, no matter how much time passes. The next few days were horrible. Victoria wasn't answering my messages. Cynthia, her mom, called me to tell me I was being selfish and that I should put my daughter's feelings before my pride, which seemed super unfair to me because it wasn't about pride but about principles and dignity. Brittany supported me, but also gently told me that maybe I should consider making the effort for Victoria, not for Scott. Like a week later, Raymond and Diane invited me to eat at their house. I thought it was going to be a normal meal, but it turned out to be basically a family intervention. There were my parents, my aunt, a cousin, and everyone basically told me it was time to let go of the past, that Victoria was suffering because of me, that Scott had matured and apologized 1,000 times over the years, something he never heard because I don't give him the chance to talk to me, and that I was ruining what should be my daughter's happiest day over something that happened decades ago. My mom was crying, saying she just wanted to see her 2 sons together again before she died, and I felt like they were all attacking me at the same time. I told them, listen, I understand that for you it's easy to say forgive and forget because you weren't the ones betrayed. But I lived that. I felt that stab. And time doesn't heal everything like people think. For me, Scott stopped existing the day I caught him with Danielle, and I'm not going to pretend we're a happy family just to make all of you feel better. My dad got angry and told me I was being stubborn and bitter, that I should think about Victoria and not just about myself, and I left there feeling super frustrated because no one seemed to understand my point of view. Brittany that night asked me if I had ever considered at least listening to what Scott had to say, not necessarily forgiving him, but at least having a closure conversation after so many years. I told her I didn't see the point, that there was nothing he could say that would change what he did, but she made me think a little when she said, what if it's not about him, but about you? What if you need that conversation not to forgive him, but to be at peace with your decision? I don't know. The truth is, her words kept spinning in my head. Then, like 2 weeks later, Victoria calls me and tells me she needs to see me urgently at my house, that she has to talk to me about something important. I thought she had finally decided not to invite Scott and that everything was going to be resolved, so I told her yes, come whenever you want. She arrives that Saturday afternoon, knocks on the door. I open it, expecting her alone, but turns out she had brought Scott and Danielle with her. I swear to God I felt like the floor opened up beneath me. After 26 years, there was this guy at my door, older obviously, with gray hair and wrinkles. He didn't have the last time I saw him. And Danielle also there standing looking uncomfortable. Victoria starts saying, Dad, please listen to them. Just give Scott 5 minutes to tell you what he has to tell you. But I didn't even let her finish. I told Scott, you have exactly 10 seconds to get off my property before I call the police. And he tried to say something like, Peter, please, I just want to talk. And I raised my voice and yelled, out of my house now. Victoria was crying, saying, Dad, please don't do this. But I was so furious I couldn't even think clearly. I felt like all the emotions I had stored for 26 years were coming out at the same time. Danielle tried to put her 2 cents in, saying they just wanted to fix things for the good of the family. And I told her, "You don't have a say in this. You two destroyed my family 26 years ago, and now you come here like nothing happened, like you could erase everything with a shitty apology." Scott kept saying he was sorry, that it had been the worst mistake of his life, that he had matured, and I told him, "I don't care if you became the Dalai Lama. To me, you're still the same trash that betrayed his own brother. Now get out before I do something I'll regret." They left. Victoria stayed a while longer, crying in my living room, saying she had just wanted to help, that she thought if we saw each other face to face after so long, maybe something would change. And I explained to her between anger and disappointment that what she had done was basically an ambush, that she had no right to bring those people to my house without my permission. She left saying she didn't know what to do anymore, that she loved me, but didn't understand why I couldn't let go of the past. That night I didn't sleep at all. I kept tossing and turning in bed, thinking about everything that had happened. Seeing Scott's face after so many years, reliving all that shit I thought I had gotten over. Brittany hugged me and told me everything was going to be okay. But honestly, I didn't feel okay. I felt like I was 20 years old again, and discovering the betrayal for the first time. The next few days were hell. Raymond called me, yelling that I had humiliated Scott in front of his wife and his niece. Diane left me like 5 voice messages crying, saying I was dividing the family. Even Cynthia called me to tell me Victoria was devastated and that I was being incredibly selfish. I felt attacked from all sides, like I was the villain of this story, when all I had done was maintain my boundaries after a horrible betrayal. But then, like a week later, Victoria calls me again. This time her voice sounded different, calmer but also more serious. She tells me, "Dad, I need to see you. I'm coming alone this time, I promise." And I accepted because at the end of the day, she's my daughter, and I love her even though we were in the middle of all this drama. She arrives at my house, we sit down, and she tells me, "Dad, you're right. I shouldn't have brought Scott without warning you. That was wrong of me, and I'm sorry. But I also want you to know something I discovered that made me completely change my mind about this whole situation." Turns out Victoria, after the scene at my house, went to talk to Scott to try to better understand the whole story, and in that conversation, Scott basically admitted that his interest in reconciling wasn't genuine. That the truth is, his son Michael is getting married in 6 months, and he wanted us to be reconciled for his wedding. So it wouldn't look bad in front of his daughter-in-law's family, who apparently are super religious and conservative and don't like family conflicts. I mean, like this whole thing about wanting to fix things with me wasn't because he really felt sorry or wanted to make peace, but because he needed to clean up his image to look good to other people. Victoria told me that when Scott dropped this on her, she felt super used. She realized he had manipulated her to organize that meeting at my house, that this whole story about wanting to be at her wedding was a lie, that he was just using Victoria's wedding as a stepping stone to get to what he really wanted, which was to look like the good brother who did everything possible to reconcile. When she told me this, I felt a mix of vindication and rage. Like on one hand, I was glad Victoria finally understood the type of person Scott was, but on the other hand, it made me angry that he had tried to use my daughter that way. Victoria told me she had decided that Scott definitely wasn't going to be invited to her wedding, that she had understood that some betrayals simply don't deserve to be forgiven, especially when the person isn't even sincere in their intentions. She apologized to me again for putting me in that position and told me she now understood why I had kept my distance all these years. We hugged and cried for a while. She told me the only thing she wanted was for me to be at her wedding, walking her down the aisle, and I promised her I'd be there no matter what. But the story didn't end there, because turns out Victoria was so angry with Scott that she did something I never asked her to. But that honestly gave me enormous satisfaction. She went to confront him again, this time with Danielle present, and basically told them everything she thought, that they were manipulators, that they had tried to use her wedding for their own purposes, that they had no shame, and she recorded everything, literally, with her phone. And when Scott got aggressive and started saying that I was the problem, that I was the one who had held the grudge all these years over something that was a youthful mistake, Victoria let him talk and talk until he basically buried himself. Then Victoria uploaded that video to her social media with a long text explaining the whole situation, obviously omitting some personal details, but making it clear that her uncle had tried to manipulate her to improve his family image. The video went viral in our community, like it had thousands of views, and people started commenting supporting Victoria and criticizing Scott. Some family members got angry, saying that was dirty laundry that shouldn't be aired in public, but most of the young people in the family agreed with Victoria and started seeing Scott in a different light. Raymond and Diane were super upset with me, as if I had been the one who uploaded the video. But I made it clear to them that that was completely Victoria's decision, that she's an adult and can do whatever she wants. The truth is, I felt proud of her for defending her principles and not letting herself be manipulated, although I understand that for many what she did was too public and dramatic. Victoria's wedding was 3 weeks ago. It was beautiful, perfect. Jake cried when he saw her walk in. I cried when I gave her away at the altar. And there was no family drama because Scott obviously wasn't there. Raymond and Deanne went, but were quiet and distant the whole event, basically making the minimum effort out of courtesy. Some uncles and cousins who were on Scott's side didn't go either, but honestly, I didn't miss them. The people who really mattered were there. After the wedding, I had a conversation with Raymond where he basically told me that although he doesn't agree with how I handled everything, he understands it's my life and my decision, and that he hopes someday I can find peace with all this. I told him I already have peace, that my peace comes from maintaining my boundaries and not letting toxic people be in my life, and that includes Scott, no matter that he's my biological brother. I think he finally understood, or at least stopped pressuring me. Brittany asked me a few days ago if I ever regret having maintained that stance for 26 years, if I feel I lost time or relationships for being so hard. I told her honestly no, that each person has their lines that can't be crossed, and that was mine. That Scott knew exactly what he was doing when he betrayed my trust that way, and that the consequences of his actions are not my responsibility. Some people are going to see me as stubborn or vindictive, and that's okay. Let them think what they want, but I can sleep in peace knowing I stayed true to my principles. Victoria told me a few days ago that she and Jake are thinking about having kids in a couple of years, and that when that happens, she wants to make sure her kids grow up understanding the value of healthy boundaries and the importance of not tolerating betrayals just because they come from family. It made me feel good to know something positive came out of all this mess, that my daughter learned not to let herself be manipulated and to defend what's right for her. Now things are relatively quiet. I still don't talk to Scott and probably never will. The family is still divided, but honestly it doesn't affect me as much as before, and Victoria is happy in her new marriage. I guess in the end life goes on. Old wounds are still there, but you learn to live with them, and the decisions you make about who deserves to be in your life are yours and no one else's.